Talking property in the land of the gold bucket. There we go. Welcome to Private Property Avenue, WA. I'm TV. He's Oscar D'Souza, and he's actually in Kalgoorlie. So we took, why not take the opportunity, and we'll have a guest on shortly, Laura Rushmore from Kalgoorlie Metro Property Group. So she is, tell me if I'm wrong, but is she the head of the property management team over there?
Sure is, yeah. Yep.
And she's a Kalgoorlie girl. So look forward to having a chat to her about the world of Kalgoorlie and the property world. But if you're wondering what we're about, it's really been interesting because in the last week or two, I've had a bit of feedback with regard to our podcast. And we're not probably the greatest when it comes to marketing. A lot of that's got to do with it. We've got some great ideas. The two of us don't have a lot of time up our sleeve at the moment. But the whole purpose of our exercise is what we're doing is just the focus is WA, and we like to say, as we like to refer to us as, we're independent. We're not representing anybody or anything. We're not here for our own agenda. And it's all about discussing property, and we exchange an opinion or opinions. We provide some thoughts and tips. And we also try to get some fabulous guests, which is what we're doing with this episode this week. We can have a chat to and discuss their thoughts and get their opinions of what they're, whatever field they're in or whatever they're in. And obviously, it's not focused about just Perth. We're focusing on different areas. So we've done Geraldton, we've done a little bit of the southwest, and we've done Karratha. So we thought, well, Oscar's in Kalgoorlie, why not? So Oscar's done some heavy lifting, and here we are. And look, before we do go, I must go to because remember for those that perhaps follow us on a regular basis, we do have, up until now, we've always had a weekly podcast and a weekly stream, but it's now fortnightly. And so you can get our podcast every Wednesday through your various platforms. And, of course, every Tuesday fortnight, which will be this week, you can get our live stream via Facebook or YouTube. And there we are. But our disclaimer. So the general information, the information in this podcast to be regarded as general advice. Your personal objectives, needs, and financial circumstances were not taken into account when preparing this content. We always advise and recommend you seek personal, professional, and financial advice tailored to your specific individual needs before making financial, property, and investment decisions. And yet another week goes by, and I've experienced it firsthand where we've had a couple of little complicated things associated with a couple of clients. And the important part was, no, we can't address that side of things. So we've directed them back to their accountant because the structure that they want to put in place with what they want to do when it comes to buying property needs to be sorted out first with their accountant because of the implications associated with taxation and all those sort of different things. So it's very, very, very important. And although you might be under pressure with regard to buying property or selling property, please ensure. It can be an expensive exercise if you don't get it right. And I'm sure my little friend here on my, what are you, on my right, my left? I don't know.
You seem to be on my left.
I know. You seem to be on my right, but I'm not sure. So how you been? How's your week? Kalgoorlie.
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, really good. As you mentioned, TV, I'm, firstly, welcome viewers, listeners, and hopefully shortly our guest, Laura from Kalgoorlie Metro Property Group, as you mentioned, is the head of department in property management. So, and she's been with the business TV for 10 years. So she's going to be a great bag of information. I'm just hoping that she does appear in the room sometime in the next 30 minutes because, she's dealing with an urgent property management matter, and these things happen, but hopefully she's going to appear in the room within the next 30 minutes. But I'm really good, mate. I'm in Kalgoorlie, as you said. I'm nice and busy. My facial hair is growing, maybe not as fast as yours, Grandpa Viner. What's going on there?
I know. I went to a function last night. I attended a function last night, the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, the West Australian Chinese Chamber of Commerce. Wow, mate, I was so impressed. The theme was the dinner was the theme was the migrant story, and they've been doing this, I think, something like 20 years. And they had two young guys there who were describing their story and the challenges and the successes. And wow, mate, it blew me away. I mean, I have a lot, as you
Yeah.
know, to do with the Vietnamese and a number of Chinese clients over a long period of time. But it really was pretty special. And the success, and some of them are made with property. So I'm looking forward to catching up with a few of them over the coming weeks that we've met and we've spoken to each other. And but yes, I was very self-conscious of the fact that I had this little grey thing hanging around my face.
It's not little. It's not little,
no,
TV.
Well, but for those that are wondering, we're doing it for a purpose. It is Movember. I've been meaning to post our stuff on our social media pages, and I'll do that. If you can contribute, it's not about money, it's more about awareness. Both of us have got friends and have experienced the situation with men's health, the people close to us both, and so it's more an awareness thing, and it is really something special, and it means something to the two of us. So it is a bit of fun, but it's got a serious side to it as well, and if you can help in any way, we'd love you to do so.
Just on that, you've set up a spot where people that want to donate to this cause can actually go and donate?
Yep. And I'll ensure that I post. I'll ensure that if you go to the Property Avenue or the Champion-Based Settlements or the Dedicated Property Management Facebook pages, I'll ensure I put it on Property Avenue WA Facebook page and Instagram, and then between the two of us, we'll share it around, and you can click on the link. And if you want to donate, whether it be $1, whether it be $10, I have set a target of 500. And in actual fact, what we're doing as a business, we're contributing a portion of each one of our settlements for this month, for Movember.
Yeah, right.
We're contributing, Champion-Based Settlements is contributing that to Movember. But as I said, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. It's about what it's what it's meant to achieve, and that's men's health, which is super, super important.
Just on that, I went to a function last Wednesday night, and one of the guys picked that I was doing Movember, and straight off the bat, he said he'll give me. It's off the bat said $100, no question.
Really?
Straight off the bat. Yeah, and I went $100, and he goes, "Oh, make it 1,000." I went, "No, come on, you're getting carried. Like, we can't have 1,000." He goes, "No, $100. Promise you, $100." So, and his name, I'm going to call him out, is Brendan Quartermain, who lives down Bunbury Way. And as I said, I saw him at a Perth function. So, Brendan, if you're listening, and if you're not, I'm going to tag you in this anyway, mate. But $100. You said that you would contribute to obviously a very good cause, and I'd be very honoured if you came good with your donation. That would be great.
Well, I will call out as well. Seeing where you're doing a couple of call outs, I will call out too with regard to I've got I was a guest of Tang Law, who were one of the main sponsors of the event last night, and my friend there, Gabrielle, they've put their hand up and said, "TV, make sure you send us the link through, and we'll get it around to the team at the office and see what we can do." So they haven't given me a specific, but I know, knowing them as I do, I'm sure they'll support us. So to the boys at Tang Law and Gabrielle, look forward to sending you that link. But it's fantastic. And it's nice to be able to do something that, as I said, it's an awareness as much as anything. So, mate, the week itself has been chaotic. There's been lots of things going on, but I think, as always, we should get it official from the guru himself, being one Oscar de Souza. So let's go to. The floor is yours.
It's such an interesting intro that you've put together there, mate. But anyway, a very big week in WA real estate, whether we're talking regional, and I'm in regional WA today, or whether we're talking about our Perth metropolitan market. It's just a very, very busy real estate area, and it has been, for one of not wanting to sound like a broken record, but it has been all year. In fact, it has been for the last 18 months, which is basically we bounced out of COVID in our WA property market, and things just went bang. Unbeknown to or unanticipated by everyone, including sellers and buyers and renters and real estate agents. And we've got a very, very buoyant, growing property market at the moment. But I will say, there is actually a notable change in my stats, which I'm going to explore a little bit further. But has the heyday finished? Has the whole buyer fear of missing out, is that all finished as well, or is that going to wind back a bit? There's a bit of an increase in supply, so I'm going to touch on that. But before I do, as per usual, the last 7 days, TV has brought about 1,067 sales in Perth. That's Perth alone, so 1,067 sales. A normal market's 500 to 600 sales. A really strong market like what we've had is 800 to 1,000 sales. And when we exceed 1,000 sales like this week just gone, that's a very, very, very busy real estate market, which we've exceeded 1,000 a few times over the last few months. And we have again in this last week. This time last year, so middle of November last year, there was 869 sales. So, and again, we had a really busy real estate market back at that time. But today's number of 1,067 is 22.7% more than this time last year. So if November last year was strong, and it was 22.7% more transactions, well, the proof's in the pudding. I think you can interpret that data yourself. This is where the market, I think, might be changing a little bit and that is our listings, which is the supply of properties available for sale. This week, for the first time in many months, we've cracked the 9,000 listing mark. So in fact, it's actually 9,067 listings available for sale. For at least 6 months, that figure has actually been less than 9,000. It's mostly been in the 8,000 area. And when it got very, very tight with lower supply, we were about 7,000 and something, which was super, super tight. And that really was a time when you had massive lines outside home opens and multiple offers submitted. And that whole fear of missing out for the buyers was definitely there. But for the first time in 6 months, I've actually seen the supply of property available for sale exceed 9,000 properties. We're still 12% below where we were this time last year. But as we finish up spring and now head into the new year effectively, we actually are seeing a bit of an increase in supply. So probably the people that notice that most are the buyers that are out there, because they've got a bit more options to choose from in terms of what they're looking at buying. That desperation is no longer there. So it's good news for buyers. It's not bad news for sellers, because the market, it's still tight, the market's still strong, but seeing a very slight general change and shift towards having more properties available is probably a good thing for just about everyone. Our rental
Can I
market,
interrupt Can I interrupt for 1 second? Just the fact of what you're saying. I know what I'm talking about is only a small portion based on phone calls to me personally, but including my son, and my daughter-in-law, who were just plus clients, who were just desperate. They got to the point where going, TV, we're just about ready to, they were struggling. Every time they went to a property, there was already people offering more, or offering the asking price. I've had a client this week, in fact, who I've directed them to a mate of mine to go. I spoke to him, Jeff Wright, Righty from Jeff
from
Wright
Real Estate in Scarborough.
Yeah, he and I worked at National Bank together.
Oh, that's right. You told me that a long time ago. I know Jeff really well.
Yeah. So he and Deb got lovely people, and so Righty's a fabulous fellow. So we had a good chat about things.
He's a pretty handy golfer.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's already told me he's a member of Karen Up, and I've teed him up. I said, listen, we've got to have a hit. So, so he was talking with regard to, and he said, mate, it's just really, now obviously he focuses on the Scarborough, Double View, that Karen Up sort of area. That's where his offices are. But certainly I've had some clients that just sort of going, what do we do? They're becoming really frustrated because even to the point of putting in an offer and with finance already approved and ready to go, and then they get knocked off by someone's put an offer in for cash. And they're just going, they had their hopes set. So it's a challenge. It's still a challenging time for a lot of people.
It is. And even that just sort of segues into our rental market as well, TV, in that there's not enough supply and there's very, very high demand. It's not sales, it's not the selling and buying a property, but it is rentals, and it is having people having a roof over their head. And just like you've got people missing out on sale properties when their finance is approved and they're offering above the asking price, well, that's basically happening in the rental market as well, where in terms of what we consider is important with a rental application is, are you good people? Have you got a good rental history? Are you going to keep the place to a satisfactory standard? And can you pay the rent? Ultimately, that's what we're looking at. And we can have very, very good applications for rental properties at the moment. Like I did have last week 3 outstanding applications for this one property. And of course, only one party can get the property. So 2 people miss out, or 2 groups miss out, and they have a chat with me and say, oh my God, like our rental application was so strong and we offered a bit more and we had a great rental history. Like, what was wrong with our application? And the answer is nothing. There's nothing wrong with your application. What is wrong is that there's not enough supply of properties for sale or for rent. So in this last 7 days, 694 properties leased again. This time last year, it was 767. So it's around about the same level. And it's around about the same level that it has been for the last couple of months. So around about 700 properties leased every week. Listings remain at an all-time low. 2,268 rental properties available through Perth, and that's really, really low. That number normally needs to be between 4,000 and 5,000. It's been below 3,000 for basically all year, and at around about 3,000 properties, that's where we get our 1% vacancy rate in Perth. So when we drop below the 3,000 mark, that 1% becomes 0.9 or 0.8%, which is, it's too low at 1%. So imagine when you've got less stock on the market. This time last year, our rental market was entering the crisis. And at this time last year, we had 2,864 rental properties available. So as at today, even though we had a very tight market 12 months ago, as at today, we've got 21% less stock than what we did this time last year. So no improvement there. There's no change at all, really, in the rental market. It's just very strong, both in the metro area and the regional market. Very, very low supply and high demand. But as I said, I have noticed a slight shift in the supply of properties available for sale. And quickly touching on our local regional markets, Geraldton, which we always do, as at today, TV, there's 50 properties available through
they've gone up.
Geraldton. Yeah, they have. It's gone up a little bit. They've
gone up from 32 to 50.
I'm hearing all the excitement in your voice, but in reality, it's nothing.
Oh, I know.
50 it's not
tongue in cheek excitement.
Yeah, well, I guess when you start from such a low base, it can be easy to get excited about 50 properties. But bearing in mind a normal market in Geraldton's 160 to 180, and a number 4 years ago, there was as much as 400 properties available. So today, when we're talking 50, like, it's massive shortage, and 32 properties a couple of weeks back was that much worse. And in Kalgoorlie, I haven't had my good friend Laura walk into the room yet, but in Kalgoorlie, very similar to Perth, in that right now they've got 47 properties through the whole of the Kalgoorlie-Boulder region. So I dare say if I did stats for Busselton, or if I did Exmouth, if I did Karratha or Headland, or if I did Albany, I'm going to be reporting very similar statistics, and that is very, very high demand and very, very low supply. So that's the stats as at today.
Hey, just before you do that, I probably interrupted you. Were you going to give us a little bit of a regional insight on the sales market? Did you have something there? Were you going to mention?
No, not in particular, but I can just give you a very quick summary to that. And I know this for a fact. I'm not trying to be general, but what they're experiencing in the regional market is exactly the same as what we're experiencing in the Perth metropolitan market, except in the regional market, and particularly a market such as the Midwest, they've got a bit more of an additional supply and therefore not as much pressure on supply than what we've got here in Perth. So prices are increasing in regional WA and in Geraldton. They're very, very busy, the real estate agents, so a high volume of transactions, but there still is a good supply of properties available for sale. So there's not too much or not the same level of the buyer's fear of missing out, which is good.
Yep, that's what I've heard as well. And although I've also aware that I think in some cases I've had a couple of Eastern States clients who've bought in regional WA on the basis that affordability, getting a good rental return, but it's still so affordable. So that has a lot of that's creating a lot of interest, and that's when I say a lot of interest, that's just me and my connections and associations. But it's certainly, if I compare to the connections and the associations I had 2-3 years ago, I'd get a call once every 3 months. At the moment, you're probably getting 2 or 3 calls a week.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, so and that's without even, that's not a lot of marketing going on. That's just word of mouth.
Yeah. Have you got you playing Santa in a shopping centre or something soon, mate?
I don't think there's need to be harsh, but I think one of my grandchildren did question me as to what my plans were, what I was trying to do. So I had to be sort of careful. No.
You don't have Santa's tummy, that's for sure.
But, no, I don't. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, the facial hair, though, I think you could give him a run for his money.
Aren't we talking property rather than being personal?
Did you just say, let's move on?
The thing that I was going to ask you as well, no, I've done that. But the other thing that I was going to make mention is that did you see, before we get to while we wait for Laura, one of the things, and we'll probably go to, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll be cheeky and I'll do the little property headlines, because I've got a great little property thing.
Yeah. Why don't you just, if you want, why don't you just if you want to, bump me off the screen just whilst you do these property headlines, and I'll just quickly go and see if I can find Laura.
Okay, then. See you later.
What?
So while Oscar goes and finds our guest, because he's over in Kalgoorlie at the present time, and as I say, this what we do with this podcast is very, well, should you say, it's pretty relaxed. It's not we're not all about formalities too much, but what we discuss and the topics that we're about, of course, are very serious, and we're talking about people's lives. And hence I'll go to a property headline. But before we do, we always like to introduce property headlines. Oh, don't you love it? I've spent a bit of time getting a little bit funky. So property headlines, but one of the property headlines that was really, really intriguing, and in fact, I read it, and then within a day or two, one of the TV stations made reference to it, and then I did my professional, as I've got a conveyancing license, to retain that license as a requirement to do a professional development. Update ourselves with what's going on in the world of conveyancing and real estate. But while I was doing that, what I'm referring to was that there was a reference in one of the papers about this young couple, which fortunately it's not the rules in West Australia, but I think it just highlights what you need to be careful of, is this a couple in Queensland where they put a deposit on a property for $75,000. And unfortunately, due to timeframes and everything, they lost that money. The bank, in simple terms, the bank, for whatever reason, got delayed. Now, before we all jump up and down and go crook at the bank, there is a good story to this, because when I first read this, I went, oh my God, this is just a story you just don't want to hear. But I can tell you that what did happen is that the bank did come to the party, but I think it also highlights when it comes to having his back. what you need to be careful of, what this highlighted, although the rules are very different. So I'm talking, Oscar, about an article I read, and in fact, a day or two later, I heard it was on one of the TV stations made mention of it on the news, where a couple made a $75,000 deposit. The bank wasn't missed out on the time frame for settlement, and unlike in WA, for example, where there's days grace and then there's a process, you don't just automatically lose your money. These sellers claimed the money and resold the property, which that in itself just,
wow.
If that's not greedy, I don't know what. And I believe, reading the article and since listening to the news, it was on TV, I can't remember which channel, but I believe the buyers tried to plead to the sellers, say, look, this is what's happened. Didn't want to know about it. Took the money, and basically come midnight that night, they must have had it organised, because they had a buyer the next day, basically, for more money, and away we went. But as I said, the good story is...
And the buyer lost their full deposit.
Yep. But as I said, before we all jump up and down, the bank, in this case, I think it was, let me have a quick look, but I think it was Westpac Bank. Yes, it was. It was Westpac. And they then came to the party and refunded the sellers with 75 grand, plus paid them some further monies, I think in the end, to help them with the costs that they'd already outlaid, etc. They're ready to go to settlement. It was just an issue, and it happens so often. And as I say to clients all the time, in a conveyance sense, when people get a little bit agitated about things, hey, listen, everyone's busy, including the banks. And it's not just busy in Perth, or it's not just busy in Geraldton, or it's not just busy in WA. It's busy Australia-wide. And the banks, not only is the settlement agents, the real estate agents and the builders and everybody busy, the bankers are busy. And little things, the busier you are, little things go wrong. And, of course, there's delays. And in WA, we have 3 days grace for that exact reason. But what I'm getting back to here in WA, and it is a WA program, in WA, it's really, really important that you get your time frames right. And I don't care what real estate agent tells you, oh, look, we can rush it through, or we can do this. Before you do anything, get back to our disclaimer, get independent professional advice before you sign the dotted line, because cater for the what if. If you have a seller, for whatever reason, and I'm not saying all sellers agree, because that's not the case, but if you get a seller or who's not prepared to vary it and extend that settlement, you could be up for penalty interest. You might not lose your $75,000 deposit, but you could have penalties. And those penalties can be anything from $90 to $100 to $400 a day until your settlement is effected.
Just on that, TV, it's like you say, there's so many different variations as to where people might not meet the timeframes and how it impacts on them. I'm actually dealing with a Geraldton family who reached out to me because they were looking at purchasing a investment property in Perth. They actually ended up purchasing the property, put it under contract. I was going to look after the management of it. And the finance...
Are we doing settlement?
Sorry?
Are we doing the settlement, do you know?
No. I don't know. I actually don't know who's doing the settlement, but it's not going to go to settlement anyway, because as it turns out. But I don't know, TV. But
that's right. No.
Yeah, but it's not going to go to settlement because I think the buyer had put maybe 21 or maybe 28 days finance on there, and the seller was not prepared to extend the finance condition, and they know in this current market they can sell it and maybe even sell it for more. And so the buyer, I reached out to the buyer to say, how's it all going? And she mentioned to me that, well, the deal's fallen over because the seller would not extend the finance condition. I would have thought the real estate agent might have actually informed the buyer as to whether their finance condition is realistic or not at the time of actually signing the offer. But ultimately, the buyer needs to make that call themselves and get advice from their bank or their broker as to what's the best time frame to put on there. Because aside from the fact that, like what you mentioned, it can cost penalty interest as you move closer to settlement if finance is approved and all that. Aside from that, it's real estate that we're talking about, whether it's investment or owner occupied, but in particular, it's a big decision. It's lots of money. And typically when people buy owner-occupied properties or even investment properties, there is some level of emotion and some sort of exhilaration and excitement that goes with buying your next property. I really think that is the case. And then to have it all fall in a hole and not go anywhere just because you didn't have your dates lined up correctly, like you mentioned at the start, it certainly could have been planned a bit better. So it's a real common thing. It affects your world, TV, a lot more than mine, but it's certainly in my world as well.
Yeah, and I think the fact is that certainly in our case, I know my staff and I, it's not just, it's just Oscar D'Souza. We take it personally. It becomes, when we've got a client, it's certainly something that we are very passionate about. And in fact, I've had a meeting with my senior girls today, and as we do on a regular, just about daily, we chat about whatever it is we need to talk about with files and things. And it's as though some people, we treat every client like it's the only client we've got. And of course, these things, exactly what you're talking about, and we're trying to alleviate those pressures. I mean, when people turn around, I love when I see these adverts and promotion of saying, come and see us. We'll make your settlement stress-free or your purchase stress-free. I'm thinking, no, don't say that, because, that's just not a possibility. But I think the fact is that what is important, and we've emphasized this before, and I make a point, I consistently contact the banks. I consistently speak to our resident brokers in Dean Stonehouse or Jordan Ralph, a couple of others, Paul Morphew up in Geraldton, for example, and just check with them as to what the timeframes are like at the moment. And at the moment, we're still talking about the 40, 42 days. And as much as everyone goes, that's a long time, we're not saying it will go that long, but that's what we're recommending you put in a contract. And as much as that might not be everybody's ideal, I think you've got to be realistic, because not every time, as you've just identified now, where the seller didn't want to play ball and suddenly those poor people had their heart set on whatever that property that they were going to invest in, and suddenly it didn't happen because the dates were perhaps too short a time in this market.
Well, the bank, according to the buyer, the bank hadn't even picked up the file. In the 20 or 28 days that they had, it's not a case that they didn't finish the finance application or speak to the employer or something like that. The bank hadn't even picked up the file.
Yep. And remember, Dino, I think it was Dean or Jordan said to us before that it was at one stage, I think one of the banks was out to 23, 24 days before they picked the file up.
Yeah.
Now that's business days, I'm guessing. So if you just put 21 days, all of a sudden, and particularly now, don't forget now, over the next couple of months, 2 or 3 months or a few months, we've got a lot of public holidays. We've got Christmas. We've got Easter. Now, I know everyone says, it's only 1 or 2 days, but add that to your weekends and add that to all that. Suddenly, that has a big impact on the whole process.
And add that to the short staffing of banks, because people are going to take holidays with their families as well.
Yep. So be really, really conscious. If we can give you a tip, ladies and gentlemen, for those that are out there, talk to your friends, if you're listening and it's not you that's buying or it's not you that's selling, but you've got a relative or you've got a mate or you've got a work buddy or whatever, just be conscious. You don't have to tell them what to do, but maybe make reference to our podcast, or maybe make reference to the fact that say, hey, listen, have you gone and got some independent advice before you do that? Because it's really, really important, because you could save yourself some heartache.
I might just point out, mate, that I'm hoping that Laura does walk in the room, but as I said, she got pulled into a matter that had to be sorted out, and so it has affected her timeline. So it's very possible that she might not actually show her face in the next 20 minutes, which means, and if that happens, that she doesn't show her face, then in 2 weeks' time, we will definitely have her back on the show. But in the meantime, I think you and I will just crack on.
Well, the other option being is that we could do a little bit more of the property headlines. And then we could finish this up and do two segments. We can do 2 segments. So when she's ready, I've got an appointment at 2:00. So what do you think? Or would you happen to kick on?
No, I won't be able to do that today just because I've got I've got two more training sessions. Yeah, it won't work, unfortunately.
No, that's all okay. That's all good. So we'll rejig a little bit. The other thing that so talking about that while we're on, well, maybe what we do is that I did my professional development. That's a requirement under my license, which I think you've got to do the same. Do you not? Do you have to do the same?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So how many points do you have to generate? Is it because we work on a point system?
Well, I've got the two licenses that I've got is my valuation license and my real estate license. So my real estate license is 10 points annually, which is 7 elective and 3 mandatory. And with my valuation license, I have to do 20 CPD points.
And they don't, even though you're doing CPDs, they are separate, completely separate.
The property, the property valuation ones. The good thing is I'm allowed to, or often allowed to, contribute or attribute what I'm doing in my real estate world. The valuation points are recognised in the real estate world as well. So,
That's
I'm not doing
a
total of 30. Yeah, it is a lot.
And so, do you do those by webinar or do you do those physically in attendance?
These days, I just from an efficiency or timeliness point of view, I'll do practically all of it via online webinar type stuff. But my actual preference is to be in the room because I get a lot more benefit from being in the room of the speaker and also your industry colleagues.
Yeah, I agree. I did webinar yesterday only because of my time frame and being me, Mr. Organised, left it to the last minute. And I suggested.
Don't you have till the 31st of December?
Well, you do, but that's as long as there's some courses to be done. People go on holidays, mate. Yeah. So
that's right.
Yeah.
TV.
And for those that are listening, what we're talking about is professional development and the things that that in my training yesterday, we discussed the new rules and the things associated with
you got a bit of old man brain, have you?
I did, Strata Titles Act. God, I'm going well. It was only yesterday. Heaven forbid. There's a lot going on in my world at the moment. That fall I had some time back, I think it's affected me. Strata titles. So I really, really would like to. I think it's a topic we need to get onto. But one thing that really intrigued me with regard to that was raised yesterday is the rules regarding the 10-year management maintenance plan. Would you like to enlighten us a little bit on that? Have you got question without notice? Okay. No,
not really. And you know why? Because I haven't done my CPD points yet, so I'm not full bottle on the impact. Well, because as I said, 31st of December, mate, that's a good.
So you're worse than me.
Worse than me. Last year, I kid you not, I actually did my CPD points on the 31st of December.
Oh, no. Yeah. That's too much. That's too much.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that this year. I won't do that this year.
Please don't. It's too much stress.
Yeah.
But it is a really interesting topic, and I think what we might do is go through that, but I will pursue our guest who specialises in that area and see if we can do that.
You've got a guest for that?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple of choices.
Right.
So I'll ensure that we. I've actually already written that down as a couple of points. The other thing that I'll make mention about that was raised was RCDs and smoke alarms, and they are a really integral part of the sale and purchasing of property in this day, and they're also integral when it comes to the leasing of property. Would you?
I'm smiling, TV, because I literally have just completed a training session with the property management team here in Kalgoorlie on fire and safety, but also on RCDs and smoke alarms. So if you've got any questions on that, I actually can answer those.
Well, would you like to enlighten? So for those people that are perhaps looking at renting a property or selling a property or changing the lease of their property and getting a new tenant in, would you like to give us briefly a bit of a brief on that?
Yeah, sure. Look, in a nutshell, a couple of years ago, or maybe as much as 3 years ago, might have even been 2016, but there were some new laws passed for the fire and safety.
That's 5 years ago.
There were some new laws passed for the fire and safety regulations at rental properties, but in turn that actually has resulted in any properties that are sold as well that have the same criteria so far as two items in particular. One is RCDs, which stands for residual current device, I think. And then the smoke alarms as well. And in a nutshell, the property is required at a minimum to have 2 RCDs and 2 hardwired smoke alarms fitted at the property. It's a requirement for that to happen at a property before a property is sold, I believe, TV. So, yeah, and you have to have a electrical compliance certificate signed off by a licensed electrician to say that the property is compliant with both smoke alarms and RCDs. And I guess most importantly in my world, it's very important in a rental property because, we're housing tenants and the occupants of a house is changing quite regularly as opposed to when you sell a property. And people's safety obviously is at risk. So we, as a matter of proactive best practice, I guess, in our property management offices, we make sure that any new business that we take on has got a electrical compliance and safety certificate, which is signed off by a licensed contractor, as I said. And also we do regular tests. And when I say regular tests, at least once a year, we need to make sure that the RCDs and smoke alarms are tested. And also, as I enlightened the property management team here in Kalgoorlie, it's actually the tenant's responsibility to test RCDs every 3 months and also test smoke alarms monthly. That's what the tenant's responsibility is.
Really?
Do tenants... Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Most people wouldn't know that. And that's why it's important for property managers to make sure that they keep up to date with whose responsibility is whose. But and hence why I'm doing the training with the team today. But most people wouldn't know that. Most property managers don't know that. And therefore most tenants wouldn't know that either. But there are ways to test these things to make sure that they're working. And the tenant does have some responsibilities with that as well. Underlying, though, the landlord really does bear the responsibility of making sure that their properties are compliant. And there's other compliance things as well outside of smoke alarms and RCDs, but that's what you just mentioned. So that's the background on that.
And can I also say, when it comes to RCDs, if you're wondering what they are, the residual current devices, they're a safety switch, and the rules have done where you must now have 2 installed in your board. So for those that want to know, but where I'm coming from with RCDs, it's really, really important, and quite often it's not addressed on the contract. When you're buying a property, or for that matter, when you're selling a property, you should have a condition in there as a buyer that RCDs are installed as per the regulations. It should be a condition in the contract.
Is it in the general conditions of sale?
No.
Isn't it?
No, not as a requirement, as a special condition that they're properly installed. Pretty sure you'll find they're not. But certainly we discussed it yesterday that we recommend, and in fact, we have an annexure. So we do a lot of private contracts, as you're aware, putting contracts together. And in fact, obviously, we have a lot of clients who contact us to have a look at their contract before they sign off, be it buyers or sellers. And so often it's ignored. And quite often clients are told, buyers or sellers, it's all, oh, no, you don't need to do that. It's all covered. It's regulations. The fact being is, even though there is a fine for the sellers if they don't, something like $15,000 or $20,000 is the fine. But the fact is, if the seller refuses to do it and it's not in the contract, it's not a condition.
Yeah, right.
At the end of the day.
Right. I know that it is a requirement of, and as I said,
I'm going to have to double check now, because now you're making me double check. Now you're making me.
Well, I'm full bottle on what's required so far as rental properties are concerned, but obviously you're talking about sales. So all I do know is that it's now mandatory before the property settles that smoke alarms and RCDs need to be fitted. So whether it says that on the contractor and the general conditions of sale, or it's just a Department of Mines, Industry and Regulation Safety or DMERS requirement, I don't know, but it sounds like you're going to find the answer. TV, I'm just looking at the time, mate, just because I've got about 7 minutes before I need to be somewhere else.
No, all good. All good.
One thing, I don't know how much more stuff you've got on your agenda, but was one of the things we were going to talk about today, the comment which I'm hearing about the place a bit as well, and you've now mentioned it off air, and that is, are we living in a false economy?
Yep. Yes. That was
that something you were going to bring up today, or was that in a fortnight?
No, it was something I was going to bring up today. But if you got the other option is I've got some what's on the notice board, and I was going to do an if question.
Well, I don't know. Maybe have we got 2 minutes to quickly discuss your opinion and my opinion on?
Look,
have you got a guest?
Yeah, I have. She's put.
I thought I just saw a head fly in.
No, don't be rude. This is on record.
Oh, sorry.
I think she thinks we're playing games. She didn't realise we were recording. She thought we were just having a chat.
Oh, that's very funny. That's very funny.
So those that are watching this, you're wondering what's going on, that was just my princess. Yeah.
Okay, so 60 seconds, TV, give us your views as to whether we are operating in a false economy here in WA.
I'm not sure that it's a false economy, because I think the fact is that we've got a mining industry that is booming. And I think the fact is that because our borders have been closed, and therefore we haven't had we haven't had the issues associated with COVID like the rest of the country have. I think there are two things that have sort of, for my way of thinking, have not, I mean, depend on what your definition of a false economy is, but I think mining, I think we've got tourism is going okay locally, internally. And I think a lot of businesses, when we've heard of real estate, for example, is driving and is going. And remembering real estate, although it's surprising how it's gone, real estate was starting to tick over prior to COVID. So come November 2019, December 19, January 20, it started to move, in my opinion. We've started to see a bit of activity. So I'm not convinced it's false. I think the fact is that it's a lot. And I think the other thing that takes away from the fact that it's false is we have got, as long as we keep this rain away, we have got every chance of having an absolute bumper season for the farmers. So I think those things have always been integral parts of our economy. And probably perhaps the only false thing with our economy, which has been generated because of COVID, is the building industry. Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good summary. I'm on a similar page, not just to be a joiner or just to agree with what you've just said. I personally don't think that there's anything false about what's going on in our economy, and even the impact.
And can I make a disclaimer here that neither of us are economists? It's just our thoughts and opinions as business people and people involved in real estate.
Correct. And there's lots of people that we talk to, and I don't know whether it's just the cynics that are out there, or people that have got a specific purpose to suggest that we've got a false economy. But I don't think that there's anything false about what's going on. All the economic fundamentals in WA, like if housing prices was going out of control, or even the growth and demand that we've got at the moment, if there was people scratching their head trying to work out why that's happening, or what's underpinning it, and no one had an answer, then I could sit there and go, well, that's just out of control, and there's no real justification as to why. But at the moment, we've got plenty of justification as to why. Mining's an obvious one, but the rest of our state, TV, it really is booming economically, and one part of the economy fuels the next. So employment is the lowest that it's been in, I can't remember how many years, but it's the lowest rate in the country. In our state. So unemployment is the lowest that it's been. There is, I think, slight wage growth, or probably shouldn't say wage growth, but people earning more money. There's people that have left lower paying jobs to go to higher paying jobs. Often that is in the mining industry, but there's also a lot of trades that are in demand as well. So there might not be a whole lot of recorded wage growth, but people might leave existing professions to go to higher paying professions. So people's net household income might go up. Housing, obviously, as we know, tourism, as you mentioned, interest rates remain really low, and there's obviously a lot of demand for our mining sector, fishing industry, like every industry has recovered really well. So I don't see that there's anything false going on. We're living the same way that, except for lockdowns, but we're living the same way that the rest of the country is. There's so many economic fundamentals as to why we've got a strong economy. So I don't see that there's anything false. And I also think that we're not going to fall off a cliff next year either. I think we're going to see more of the same next year.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. And I think the fact is when the borders open up, I think that will be an interesting scenario, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm not totally – I know we're all talking about inflation, et cetera, but, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But we might try and get an expert, someone with a bit more knowledge than us. I'm going to quickly convert to what's on the notice board because I know this is a segment, and I've got a specific reason for this today. I'm a little bit more serious today. You ready? What's on the notice board? So this is our favorite. No, this is Oscar's favorite segment. But I've got some really legitimate things, and it's a shame that Laura's not here because I've got a reference there with regard. I did a little bit of homework, mad rush. But I can tell you, you've got the Kwinana Cup, which is at the Kwinana Golf Club this weekend, and I'm participating, and I'm looking forward to it a big time. So we play Saturday, Sunday, and then on Friday, the lead into the weekend is Friday. Kwinana Golf Club versus the Girlfriend Boys, and that we play for the Viner Hegarty Shield, which is in honour of my dad and Tommy Hegarty. Yep. So looking forward to that big time. And then I've got to rush off from that event, and my eldest granddaughter's graduation is on Friday night.
Your eldest granddaughter.
My beautiful girl she is, and I'm very proud of her. Yeah. And so she did her last exam. What's the day? So she did her last exam, Tuesday, her year 12 exam. So she's released. So I'm doing that Friday night. And then also remember, I've just found out there's the Teddy Bears picnic in Kalgoorlie.
Yes, that's right.
And Kalgoorlie, the Kalgoorlie Metro Property Group are major sponsors of that event.
Absolutely. I know they've got a great involvement in it, and whether they're major sponsors or whether, I don't know if they've instigated it, but Karen Bryars, who's the principal of Kalgoorlie Metro Property Group and super well known in Kalgoorlie. She's been checking the weather every hour basically because there was a threat of some rain. In fact, there is going to be rain in Kalgoorlie over the next couple of days, but I think it finds up just in time for Saturday.
Beautiful. And so the Teddy Bears picnic, what's that about? Can you quickly give me a quick
I can't.
brief? Oh,
no, okay. I can't.
Right. Laura, where are you, dear?
Yeah, Laura would know all about it, but she's not here.
That's okay. So that's the Teddy Bears picnic, which they've been doing, and I had a great photo. We'll post that on our Facebook page. I'll make sure I put one. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is Movember. We've got a couple more. What have we got left? We've got 13 more days. No, 12 more days before we go clean. But Movember is men's health. If you can support us in any way, look at our social media pages. If you want to make a financial contribution, we would really appreciate it. But it is an awareness. And for all those people out there that are participating and those people that have perhaps got a father or a brother or an uncle or whatever it may be, they're going through some health issues, it's really, really important to look out for that. And it's not just an are you okay, but also the other health issues associated with men. That we're getting better at it, but we've just got to see if we can do something about it. So, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Oh, the if question. Have you got time for the if question? I'll be very quick. I promise.
Yeah, sure.
Just so bouncy. I love the way we finished. Okay, it was very focused, and we'll probably have to do this again when we get Laura on, but I'll stick to it because I haven't got time to sort out another if question. So the if question for the week is, if you were asked the question by someone who had not been to Kalgoorlie, what is Kalgoorlie about and what intrigues you, what would it be? And where would you what would you recommend they see or do?
Well, my answer to it, I mean, Kalgoorlie is historically and still currently a mining town, mining and gold mining town, basically.
Yep.
I think that's almost how it was founded, and it's certainly how it exists today. There's this thing called the Super Pit, which I've actually taken a video of TV, and I can send it to you. But that's
please
well
do.
I will.
I'll load that.
That's worth a look. I think Kalgoorlie has got tons of great places to go and eat. So it's spread out a lot more than what Gero is, and there seems to be lots of good little spots around, like whether it's on the side of a motel or it's part of a hotel or one of the traditional pubs in town. But there seems to be lots of really, really good places to go out and to eat and spend time with people. So get out amongst the nightlife. That's what I'd say.
And guess what? If you're a golfer, it's got a sensational, I think it's international standard golf course.
Yeah. They're very proud of that over here, actually.
I've not played the golf there, but maybe that's something that you and I might be able to have to do one day. But it's very renowned for golf. But I can tell you that I'll give you some other information about Kalgoorlie. It was born in the 1880s gold rush when heaps of prospectors went there to seek their fortunes, and also can tell you it is the biggest city in the Australian outback.
Is that right?
Yep. So that's what it's described as, the biggest city in the Australian outback, and it's a vibrant mix of gold rush history, grand colonial buildings, and immense mining operations, surrounded by some of the most dazzling spring wildflowers and eerie gold rush ghost towns.
Yeah. No, it's an awesome place. Yeah, great place to come and visit and check out.
Yep, mate. I think that'll do us for the day. I really appreciate your time. Same. But have a great week. Travel safe when you get back home, and we'll touch base. Maybe try and sneak a little game of golf at some stage.
Yeah, hit it straight, mate.
I look forward to it. I'm very excited. Take care, and for all those, remember we can get us on podcast or our live stream. And we're available through Twitter, we're available through Facebook and Instagram. Take care and happy house hunting. We just do apologise that I guess couldn't make it today for obvious reasons. It's a bit hard sometimes, but we'll ensure we get Laura back in one of our next episodes.